Now, a 2-year inquiry has concluded today that Sarah Everard's killer should never have been given a job as a police officer, and had chances to stop the predator were missed. 3 forces could and should have stopped Wayne Couzens, who was reported to the police 8 times for a string of serious and sexual offences, one of which was just 4 days before he kidnapped, raped and murdered Sarah. The chair of the inquiry called for an immediate overhaul on police vetting.
Without a significant overhaul, there is nothing to stop another Wayne Couzens operating in plain sight. I would urge all those in authority in every police force in the country to read this report and take immediate action. Sarah's parents and loved ones live in the perpetual grief and pain of having lost Sarah in this way. Her death and the public discourse it caused should galvanise those responsible for policing to ensure that those who have the privilege and power of protecting us can be trusted.
Well, Home Secretary James Cleverly told the Commons that police officers will be automatically suspended in future if they are charged with any criminal offence.
Anyone who is not fit to wear the uniform for whatever reason must be removed from policing, and every effort must be made to ensure that similar people never join.
Well, joining me in the studio, TalkTV correspondent Holly Hudson, who was there for the conclusion of that inquiry, and you have the inquiry with you, which is a sizable document that's been produced on this. A lot of this stuff we already knew, but to see it fully concluded and documented in this way doesn't make it any less harrowing, despite the fact we were familiar with some of the details.
Yeah, well, you heard James Cleverly there. He described it as deeply distressing, this report, promising, of course, a prompt response from the government. But as you mentioned there, this is the first phase as well. That's key to mention. Only the first phase of this inquiry, 3 parts in total. This was the phase that looks at Wayne Couzens' conduct, his behaviour, and what, crucially, opportunities were missed by police. And as you've already mentioned, there were a series, Lady Elish Angiolini said, that were missed. Red flags, flaws in vetting processes, recruitment procedures, and crucially, investigations as well. She said a lamentable and repeated failure to deal in a reasonable and professional manner with several allegations reported to different police forces by a number of people prior to Sarah Everard's murder. And across the 350 pages of this report, she details a litany of conclusions and recommendations as well. But as you mentioned, there were some things that we already knew in relation to Wayne Couzens and the police investigation from the police watchdog that has looked into this previously, highlighted those missed opportunities, particularly in relation to the investigations into indecent exposures, which could have stopped him, which Lady Elish Angiolini said would have stopped him. He should never have been a police officer in the first place, she said. And we also had a statement, Ian, from the family as part of this inquiry today, which I think is really key to read out. They said it's obvious Wayne Couzens should never have been a police officer while holding a position of trust. In reality, he was a serial sex offender. We believe Sarah died because he was a police officer. She would never have got in a stranger's car. The loss of Sarah pervades every part of our lives. And this really does make for difficult, of course, reading for them and for the police. And
I was just making this point to George Pascal Watson, our previous guest, that there's kind of two harrowing, there's many harrowing factors in this, but there's 2 central points. How he became a police officer in the first place, because there was enough to, in this guy's backstory, and how he remained one once he got the job. And that is perhaps more disturbing, that despite this litany of quite obvious disturbing allegations against him, 4 days before Sarah went missing, he remained there. And we say this out loud now. It seems unbelievable this could have been the case.
Yeah, and you're right. This was a sort of catalogue of errors, really, relating to when Wayne Couzens first joined the forces, first joined Kent Police, first joined the Met. A number of checks were missed, a number of opportunities to check the police database. If those checks had been made, they might have noticed that the reports of indecent exposure, basically signs, warning signs that were missed by the police, many of them that would have as Lady Elish Angiolini put it, and given them an idea of his unsuitability to be a police officer, but also in his own behaviour, as you mentioned, their predatory behaviour, as it was described, a number of grossly inoffensive messages he was sending to colleagues. Psychological assessments weren't made as well, but the main sort of takeaway from this report today is his previous offences, and that since he was arrested for Sarah Everard's murder, more complainants came forward to the police. 8 indecent exposure reports, as you mentioned, but also as well a serious child sex offence, allegedly, as well as attempted kidnapping at knife point, and 2 other rapes, allegedly, of 2 other women.
I mean, it is just almost beyond belief that this ever happened. But as you say, this is the first of 3 reports. Holly, thank you. Holly Hudson.